if there is one team with the potential to pull the upset over Alabama this year, who do you think it is? And by the way, she checks in from Clifton Springs, New York, which I hear is lovely this time of year. I went up and down Alabama's schedule. There's not a whole lot of skill in this, to be clear, because last year we were looking at the Texas A&M game the week of the game, and Bama was a 3-touchdown favorite. Famously, your boy had credentials to the game, was in the state of Texas, and chose to fly home that night instead of driving down to College Station after the Red River Shootout to go to the game. Well, where is that landmine on this year's Alabama schedule? I'm going to give you in order the 5 most losable or upset-worthy spots. These are not predictions. Let me preface that. AJ King, I know you're watching. Don't have your social media team do their usual work here and back me into a corner where I'm having to answer phone calls from Josh Maxson tomorrow morning at Alabama. Bama at Tennessee. I think out of all these games on October 15th is the most potential landmine spot. Let me put it that way. If we were to have a Texas A&M upset alert of this year, it would be that game at Tennessee. You want to know why? Look at the 2 games in front of it. And for those of you driving around listening on podcast, Bama goes to Arkansas on October 1st. Bama comes home the next week to play Texas A&M. And then they go to Tennessee. There's no bye week here. They go to Tennessee the following week. That's a tough little 3-game stretch. 2 of them are on the road. And Tennessee, listen, they play at LSU the week before. So, it's not like this is going to be a 3 or 4 point spread. Yeah, Bama's still going to be solidly favored. But what have you had to do historically to beat Alabama? You've had to have some precision passing happen that afternoon. Really helps to have it in your home stadium. Tennessee's got that this year. And they won't be favored, nor should they. But they'll have a puncher's chance because they possess that, and the schedule dynamics work in their favor. The second one is Alabama at Arkansas. Still hadn't mentioned A&M yet. I think that they are third. So Alabama at Arkansas. Now here's what's fun. Bama's got a lot of big road games this year. And everyone always gets up for Bama. One of the most fun things to do if you get to cover college football and you can choose where you want to go. Go to the big Alabama road games. A lot of you are fans who have been at these games. You know exactly what I'm talking about. When Bama comes to your building, it's always like a Super Bowl. So if you cover Alabama, those beat reporters, they always get to experience the very best that those road venues have to offer. Well, think about this year. You got Neyland Stadium. You've got, obviously, Reynolds Razorback Stadium here. They go to LSU this year. They go to Ole Miss this year. This is going to be some incredible road environments. Oh, by the way, they go to Texas in week 2. I think this game, though, at Arkansas, speak of Texas, remember when Texas went in there last year? You remember what that place looked like? Did it look like anyone was going in there and winning that night? Bama's going to deal with all that and then some this year. Now, it will not be because the schedule has tripped Alabama up. If this upset happens, it'll just be because Arkansas's beat them. Because Bama, in order, has Utah State at Texas, La Monroe, and Vanderbilt, the 4 weeks leading up to this game at Arkansas. But the plus side of having this game this early in the year is Arkansas is much less likely to be beat up. They're statistically at least much less likely to have lost critical playmakers to injury. So they should be relatively full strength, full speed. Stadium should be on fire. That's one to look for. And the third one is Texas A&M. But it's a revenge spot. See, the reason I put this one down the list a little bit, even though it may be the best roster overall that Alabama plays, is because they just, outside of the Ole Miss debacle, which took a -5 turnover effort, they just don't lose the back-to-back game thing very often. You beat them one year, and then they paint the walls with your blood the next year. That's what history has shown us they do. Could Jimbo and Texas A&M turn that on its ear? Sure they could. But first things first. It's the revenge spot, which I always trust Nick Saban in. And here's the second thing. All these other games I'm going to mention, Bama's going on the road. This is the only one that I'm going to list where a big-name opponent comes to Bryant-Denny Stadium, where you have to deal with Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell, easily going to be the best pass rush in America this year, and the crowd noise element. See, all these other teams will have to deal with it too, but at least they don't have the crowd to deal with as well. A&M will have all that to deal with. And while I do trust the quarterback situation at A&M, I have no clue who it's going to be yet. So I put that one third. Fourth game is Bama at Ole Miss. Now, the reason I didn't put this higher, even though schedule dynamics play in Ole Miss's favor, it's a little bit later in the year. So normally, I think they play this game in November. Normally by November, we got the Bama team we're going to have. And usually that's a pretty good product. The second thing is, I think by this time, a lot of the problems, let's say along Alabama's offensive line, will be figured out, but even if they aren't, is this the team to expose them? Because I really trust Bama's pass rush this year. I really trust their secondary this year. And what I'm telling you is, we watched Bama pretty easily handle Ole Miss last year. I don't think it's a great matchup for Ole Miss this year. There have been Bama teams that they match up better against. I don't think Ole Miss matches up well against this team this year. Having said that, Ole Miss has got a bye, I believe, before this game. So they do have that going for them. And the fifth game, you know how tough your schedule has to be for this to be the fifth game? They go to Texas in week 2. The late kick, yet to be named tour of 2022, very tentatively scheduled to be in Austin for this game. I think it's a noon kickoff, 11 a.m. local time. I would put the over-under. Jesse, what would you say? The over-under probably 93.5 degrees at kickoff. Wow, look at the monitor. Solid money coming in on the over already. This just has to do with not knowing whether Texas defensively can put up enough resistance. And also, you're going to have either Hudson Card or more likely Quinn Ewers. And if it's Quinn Ewers, you're going to have him having to deal with that pass rush. I mean, they say baptism by fire a lot in this sport. That quite literally would be baptism by fire. So if Bama's going to lose, probably going to be to one of these 5 teams, out of all of them, I think Tennessee poses the biggest threat. I'm sure I'll get a ton of agreement in the comment section on that one. No kidding, though. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about that one. Is there any team outside that group? Think about this. They play at LSU this year, and I didn't list LSU, even in Baton Rouge, as one of the 5 most likely upset possibilities on Bama's schedule. Hadn't said that in quite a while. So maybe we won't say that again after this year.